You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey everybody, it is Monday, and you have made the right choice by tuning in to the Bible.
Yay for Mondays.
Yes.
No, who said that? That was bad.
Nobody.
That was bad. I'm going to retract that comment.
We grew up reading Garfield, remember?
Yes.
And Garfield's famous saying was?
I hate Mondays.
I hate Mondays.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mondays aren't that bad. It's all perspective.
It is.
It really is.
Although I will say this, I've not said this publicly anywhere, but so before I came to join the staff at Heritage Church with you,
Yeah.
So I've been a pastor for 33 years?
Yeah, like 300 and something.
Yeah. So I guess I've been here 4 years. So for 29 years.
5 years, Chris.
Coming up in
coming up?
October.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So for 29 years, I had Mondays off.
Uh-huh.
And then I came to Heritage, and you're like, oh, no, we work.
We work Mondays.
We work Mondays. We come in, but don't come in before noon, like a little bit rest. But then, you're here till, maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But now I end up coming, like at 10 in the morning, 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and for 40 years or 30 years, you also didn't preach 4 times on a Sunday either.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
So you're preaching 4 times on Sunday,
and coming on a Monday.
You're here for 10 hours on a Sunday, and then
Yeah. But anyway, I just anyway, when I got hired, one of Kyle, who's also in the Bible Guys, Kyle,
Yeah.
because there's multiple Kyles.
Yeah,
Kyle said, "Oh, it's just what you're used to," and I said, "Really, you think so?" And he goes, "No, it's what you're used to." He goes, "You'll get used to it."
Mm-hmm.
4.5 years later, guess what?
Still not used to it?
Not used to it, buddy. I am not used to it.
Yeah. Well, hey, we work here. No freeloaders at Heritage Church.
It's so funny. So anyway, hey, today we're going to dive into and continue with our series, What If Jesus Had a Podcast?
Yeah, which is such a fun idea.
Yes, it is.
So basically what we're doing is we're taking really famous comments and statements he made.
Yes.
And we're working off of those.
And so today is Matthew chapter 5, which is the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah. It's the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount.
Yes.
Because the whole Sermon on the Mount is Matthew 5, 6, and 7.
I know.
But yeah.
It's
I know
crazy.
That. I was saying that for the
Jeff, I know that.
Yes, I know you know.
I don't know why I said I know.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, we have a segment, and the segment is
let me go back to that other piece that you were talking about, getting working on Mondays and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now that we've had this little exchange, I've always thought we may not be smarter than other groups, and we might not be more talented than other groups, but there's not going to be anybody else that outworks us.
There you go.
Right? And we just proved it a minute ago. So
yes,
that's it.
for sure.
Here we go. So today is Guess the Word. It's like Taboo.
Yeah.
Right? The game Taboo.
Yep.
And so we have to see if Chris can figure out the keyword while I give you clues. But I have 5 words that I cannot say.
And if you're watching instead of listening, hopefully we're going to be able to put the words on the screen, the words that Jeff cannot say, just to follow along.
Yes. So, I'm a musician.
Yes.
And I've played in some very large concerts.
Trumpet. Orchestra.
With the orchestra. There you go.
Nice.
Very good. Yes. I was going to say with the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, I did a few concerts with a different band. But anyways, this is a hard one.
Wait. Tell us the words you couldn't say.
I couldn't say music, instruments, conductor, symphony, or performance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was actually quite tough.
Yeah. This one's really hard.
Yeah.
So we just celebrated Father's Day.
We did.
And when fathers get a certain age and they continue to indulge with steaks and with ice cream, they get a certain kind
Couch
of
potato.
shape.
Couch potato.
A certain kind of shape.
A shape.
Yeah, and it's kind of a famous
phrase. Dad bod.
Dad bod. There you go.
Yeah. That's funny.
I couldn't say gym belly, comfortable sweatpants, or snack.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Okay. You look through this.
Telescope.
There you go.
Wow.
I couldn't say stars, space, lens, astronomy, magnify.
Wow, I said telescope.
Yeah, that's right. So remember when we were talking about dad bods?
Yes.
When you get up in the middle of the night.
Yep.
For
you have to go to the bathroom?
No.
Prostate.
No. You are getting old. It's the dad bod. It's how you get your dad bod. Middle of the night.
Oh, snack. Midnight snack.
Yeah, midnight snack. There you go.
That's funny. That's funny. Prostate. Well, you said get up in the middle of the night.
That's awesome. Yeah, you are getting old, Zarbo.
What couldn't you say?
Fridge, hungry, secret, leftovers, and regret.
That's great. That's great.
I love the regret one.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay. At the Louvre.
At the Louvre, yep. Paris.
There's all kinds of paintings.
Mona Lisa.
There's paintings and things, but there's also not paintings, but they're made from like marble.
Carvings, statues.
Ooh, almost.
Statues, carvings, marble, masterpieces.
What is a carving? A carving is a.
What is a carving? A carving is a work of art.
You know our listeners are screaming this one right now.
Oh no!
Yeah,
What is a carving?
I don't know. Yeah, out of marble. It's a beautiful.
Oh my goodness!
Oh boy!
I don't know anything besides
You're going to
statue.
be so mad about this.
A carving is a sculpture.
Sculpture. There you go.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
So you said carving, so then I was able to say carve, but it's art, statue, carved stone shape.
Oh, I can't believe I couldn't get sculpture.
You got there.
And for somebody who likes art, I can't believe I couldn't come up with that.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, well, good job, Chris.
You know, for some reason, I always picture sculpture like made out of clay or something that's not marble for some reason. But marble is a sculpture. But yeah.
I'm sorry. I should have done better. You usually are better clue guy giver than me.
You know why? Because the word sculpture implies sculpt, right?
Sculpting.
And sculpting is, in my mind, is molding and shaping, but it's not.
Like pottery.
It could be shaving, like shaving off, right?
Chipping.
But like when I do I don't do sculptures often, but I have done
when I'm in my sculpting studio.
No, but I've done my share of sculptures in art class, and I mold and I make, right? So for some reason I wasn't, when you said marble, I was not thinking sculpture.
Oh yeah. You were thinking statue.
Yes.
And a statue in your mind's not a sculpture.
Yeah. You remember when Michelangelo, the famous quote, I don't mean you weren't there, but you remember reading the famous quote where it said, how did you turn a big block of marble into David? And do you remember what he said?
That David was already inside. He just had to get him out.
That's right. That's right. He said David was always there.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's a great.
Well, speaking of amazing quotes and great perspectives.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're going to go into the message.
The most amazing quote.
Yeah, that Jesus preaches the longest sermon that he preaches in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's Matthew 6, 7, and 8, or 5, 6, and 7.
I know, Jeff.
Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And in it is where he tells us almost all of the famous things people know Jesus said. Turn the other cheek, the golden rule, treat people the way you want to be treated.
Go the extra mile.
Every person who lives in sin that doesn't want to be corrected always wants to say, judge not that you be not judged.
Right.
Jesus said
Don't judge others.
Yeah, don't judge others, right? This is where he taught us to pray, our Father who art in heaven. This is where he taught us to go the extra mile.
These are blessed are the poor, the Beatitudes.
Yep, is there. So this whole 5, 6, and 7, you could read those in 25 minutes. It wouldn't take you long if you go find Book of Matthew and read them.
Depends. If you're a slow reader, maybe not.
Okay. Yeah, I would say. And if you're an average reader,
okay.
Yeah, 25 minutes, 30 minutes.
Don't discriminate, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But we're just going to read the first 16 verses of this message.
Okay.
And it starts off with what's called the Beatitudes. It says, so one day as he saw the crowds gathering, Jesus went up on the mountainside and sat down, and his disciples gathered around him, and he began to teach them. Is that right?
Yep.
God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. God blesses those who are humble, for they'll inherit the whole earth. God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. And God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. You are the salt of the earth, but what good is salt if it's lost its flavor? Can you make it salty again? It'll be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless. You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. Well, there you go.
There it is. And there's a lot packed in that little intro of the Sermon on the Mount, right?
Right.
And so the Beatitudes, who is it? Wiersbe?
Warren Wiersbe?
Warren Wiersbe, who he writes the little Beatitude books, the B
books.
series. And I got to tell you, even though that those are ancient, and they really are. I mean, from before we were kids, right?
Oh, he wrote them in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, 70s and 80s.
So while we were kids.
kids.
So yeah, super ancient.
Super ancient. Yeah. Well, just like us. but those little tiny books, and I'm sure you can get them online as well, are actually fantastic. And you could pick up, and there's a little book for each beatitude, right? And he calls them Beatitudes because it's a B, right? Be this way, blessed are. And it says, blessed are those poor. So he talks about those who are poor. I have the NIV, by the way.
Oh.
I grabbed a Bible from my office.
Oh, cool.
I grabbed a different version than yours.
Yeah.
But so your version at home might say, blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed.
Yeah, that's what the original Greek says, is the poor in spirit.
Poor in spirit. Those who mourn, the meek, or in other words, the humble, those who thirst after righteousness, those who are merciful, those who have pure hearts, and then those who work for peace, and those who are persecuted. And so that's just pretty amazing, because those are not attributes that somebody would actually seek out, would they?
Right.
Right? Like in that society, Jesus is lifting up what probably everybody in that society would condemn, right? If somebody is humble, well, then they're just not, they're not leaders, they're not go-getters, they're not, great big people who like to puff themselves up and, show their righteousness on the corner of the streets,
right?
And all those different kinds of attitudes that the Pharisees had, and that Jesus is saying, hey, those who are pure, those who are humble, those who are meek, those who are, poor in spirit, and merciful. Well, gee whiz, showing mercy back then was a sign of weakness, wasn't it?
Right.
And in the Old Testament, eye for an eye, all those different things. Jesus was actually introducing a brand new concept of love. And Jesus went on to say, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye, but I'm telling you that you have to forgive and to love your enemies.
Yeah.
And he introduces all these paradoxical, upside down type comments that really are rooted in love.
Yeah.
And so Jesus lifts up these attributes. Blessed if you're persecuted. What?
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Like, persecuted is I hate my life.
Right.
But Jesus is like, no.
Well, you would think that was true. Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to describe first century mentality, right? Because before this, nobody had ever said that.
Right.
Right. And I would imagine that anybody who's persecuted would probably think, no, yuck. There's no advantage of being persecuted, right? I hate it. And Jesus is like, no, if you get persecuted for my name's sake, you're taking on punishment and ridicule and everything else. But guess what? You're going to have a reward in heaven for you enduring this for me.
So the word beatitude means supreme blessing. And they would have heard the word as when it says blessed are those, or blessed are you, or God blesses those, they would hear it, happy are you.
Right.
You'll be happy with these things. So we did before you came to Heritage a number of years ago, we just had a big yellow smiley face for the logo, and it was I Just Want to Be Happy was the name of the series.
Oh, yeah.
And preached through the Beatitudes. And we covered several things, and it's amazing because it's mentioned here in the Life Application Study Bible. It says, this section of Jesus' teaching is often referred to as the Beatitudes. These verses can be understood in at least 4 different ways. One, they're a code of ethics and a standard of conduct for all believers. Right? So being poor in spirit means being humble.
Right.
Right. I recognize that spiritually I don't have it all put together. It doesn't matter how long I've been a follower of Jesus. Right. So if I'm humble in my spirit, then I recognize I need more of Jesus. Right. So I'll be happier when I finally realize I haven't arrived yet.
Yeah.
But there's something to keep growing towards.
Yeah. The opposite of pride or entitlement.
Yeah.
Right.
So one, they can be viewed as a code of ethics or a standard of living for all of Jesus' followers. The other way to view it is that they contrast kingdom values, what's eternal, with worldly values or what's temporary. And so this idea of constantly being hungry for Christ, constantly being aware of the fact that I need Jesus or whatever, those things, even persecution has an eternal impact. God says there's eternal reward for those who are persecuted. Whereas if you're always avoiding it, avoiding any kind of persecution, it usually means you're always also willing to compromise with the world to fit in. Right? Yeah. And so making temporary decisions instead of eternal decisions.
Or at the very least, afraid to stand up for anything.
Yeah. Which means usually you're just going with the flow, which means you're compromising.
Yeah, I suppose that is
what is, biblical values. And so it's contrasting between those things that are eternal and those things that are temporary. So if you have a choice, choose the eternal thing. That's kind of Jesus is laying that out there. So those are two of the ways. The third way is they contrast the superficial faith of the Pharisees with the real faith that Jesus demands. Right? The Pharisees were, look at us, look how holy we are. Look, right? Blow the trumpet just so that everybody can know it's time to pray with them, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
Yeah, which is why I said stand on the corner.
Yeah, those whose hearts are pure, those who are merciful, that's exactly the opposite. Those who hunger and thirst for justice is Jesus' way, and Jesus' followers need to be that way. And it was exactly in contrast to the fact that the Pharisees were not this way. The Pharisees didn't seek justice. The Pharisees picked up stones every chance they get to stone another person to death for breaking a law, right? And so he seems to be contrasting those two things, because this is that first big message he preaches after he starts becoming really famous, and the only real religion that people knew was the religion of the Pharisees. And so he's kind of dissecting. So he starts off his message separating my kingdom is very different from the kingdom they're building. That he's doing that. And then the fourth one is they show how the Old Testament expectations will be fulfilled in the New Testament, right? Because then he sets those first 10 verses, and then he unpacks most of those verses. Yeah. Those Beatitudes, he unpacks through the whole rest of the thing. Don't judge, rely on God, seek justice, right? Go the extra mile. So it's really fabulous.
Do you know that I'm not sure that I've ever had that thought before, structurally? Like, because I write sermons, so do you.
Yeah, you love the structure of a thing.
Yeah, and so it's an intro. It's an intro for the rest of the sermon.
The first 10 verses are the introduction for the rest of the
rest of the three.
He unpacks all these big ideas. Forgive those that want to hurt you. Pray for them. Do good to them. Right? That's the persecution thing. You go down the line. Everything that Jesus talks about after this, he introduces in this first piece.
I would love. First of all, the Beatitudes. They don't do that, do they?
Do what?
The Wiersbe books. Do they actually? Have that thought?
Yeah. So yeah. The Wiersbe books don't go exactly in line with the Beatitudes, but he got the idea from the Beatitudes.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking like if the Beatitudes are. Sorry, I need to move on from this revelation. But if these 10 verses are an intro of like, okay, let's talk about these 10 things now for the next 3 chapters. If that's the case, I would love to read something that takes the entire Sermon on the Mount and puts them under the categories of these 10 things.
Oh yeah.
Like I would love to do that.
I think when I preached through that series, I think I tied those together.
Oh.
I think.
And
if not, I talked about it, but I don't remember. It was a long time ago, 10 years ago.
If it's not 100% of the content, it's a lot of it.
It was, it's really amazing. So
cool.
Those are the 4 ways to view it, and quite honestly, I think all 4 of those ways are the appropriate way. It's not like it's one or the other; it's all of them. And then he doesn't lay these out as a la carte. You know what ones I really like? I like the ones where God blesses humble people, and I like the ones where God says those who work for peace. But I don't like the persecution. I don't like the right. It's not a la carte. It's just this. These are the kingdom values, and this is how my people are going to start living from here on out. Did you happen to go to the place where they believe that he preached the Sermon on the Mount? Yes. Yeah, it's one of my favorite places in Israel.
Yeah. Well, the acoustics would have been tremendous.
There's a hill that comes up fairly steeply from the Sea of Galilee. So you have this stunningly beautiful view, and there's all these rocks all around, big rocks. There's a church there now that they built a church up at the top of the hill. But when you come down off the hill, there's kind of a garden, and then there's all these rocks and stuff, and it kind of makes a little bit of a natural amphitheater, especially if you go off to that would be the southwest a little bit. You can kind of see how it turned into kind of a bowl.
Yeah.
And you could have had thousands of people there, and Jesus just speak, and your voice just carries so well without having to use a sound system or something.
Now, did they test it by somebody going down there and you standing up there?
No, we didn't have a tour guide.
Oh yeah, they did that for us.
Oh, did they?
So the guy walks all the way down, and then just talks, and you're like, son of a gun, like you can hear him.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing. So think about. I mean, they were pretty advanced. Roman architecture were pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But just the idea that like God would have, so I have these thoughts all the time. You have to forgive me. But like when God was creating the earth, and when God was forming, all the rocks and putting them all into place, I wonder, and I think the answer is yes. I wonder if he would have thought, I'm going to make this a natural amphitheater so that...
Because Jesus is going to need to preach here in a few thousand years.
Yes.
I totally believe you.
Yeah, and so I believe that. I believe that God, in his omniscience, just, knew that.
Yeah.
It's the same thought that... what's his name? Ron Hubbard, when he was in Israel and he was unpacking things.
Uh-huh.
And there's a theory that maybe this is exactly where the Israelites crossed the Red Sea.
Uh-huh.
There's like a wadi, and there's a big beach there, and then and so if you do a sonar, there's the Dead Sea or the Red Sea is wide in a lot of places, and then it's thin in a lot of places, right? And but there's actually, if you do a sonar, it actually comes up and there's a natural land bridge. There's a land bridge from one side to the other.
Under the surface of
the surface of the sea. Now, we don't know if that's where they crossed, but there's a lot of evidence that suggests that could be where they crossed.
Maybe God planned it for right there.
Yes, and so when God was making the earth, he's like, I'm going to make a natural land bridge because one day,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that God does those things all the time. And so when you read these passages, understanding that he's saying, you need to allow me to change your mind. Remember in the book of Romans, it says we're transformed by allowing God to change the way we think, right? Romans chapter 12. And I think that's what Jesus is doing, is he's kind of hitting reset. This is the first big message. He'd already preached, repent and turn to God, the kingdom of heaven is near. He'd done some of those things. But as far as this first big, full-fledged message, this very likely is a conglomeration of multiple days of preaching, right? Yeah. That they put together there in this preaching session. But he's hitting reset on everything that people understood about faith and religion and those things, and starts putting it into a lifestyle that is heart-driven more than rules-driven. Right? So the Pharisees had all these laws, and they were pretty good at keeping those laws, but their heart was far from God. As a matter of fact, in this message, was it when you get in chapter 7, he starts calling out the Pharisees, and he tells them, you guys are like painted tombs, whited sepulchers. You're painted white and beautiful and clean on the outside, but on the inside you're full of dead men's bones. That's the whole point. So that's how he kind of ends this message. The beginning of the message is, let me tell you, it's all about the heart. How you approach this thing is more important than just cleaning up the outside. Although, as you begin to go God's way, the outside cleans up too. So that's it. And that's why he says you're the light of the world. You're a light on a city on a hill, right?
And by the way,
which our politicians have used that phrase many times to describe our country, but Jesus said it first.
That's right. And by the way, this is the conversation that he had with the woman at the well. When the woman at the well, they were talking about, like traditions and where should you worship, and you have to worship on this mountain or that, or in Jerusalem where the temple is. And then this conversation was, and then Jesus looked at her and said, soon there will come a time where it won't matter where you are. You can just worship God in spirit and in truth. Right? It just in spirit and truth. It's all about the heart.
That's right.
And that's amazing.
So then what's inside should be coming out. And so he hits reset and says it's all about the heart. But then, if your heart's right, you're the salt of the earth. You're going to make an impact.
We didn't even touch on the salt.
If your heart's right, you're the light of the world.
Yeah.
And so he ends it with, in the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. It's interesting because earlier, or a little later, just a few verses later, he calls out the Pharisees for bringing attention to themselves when they give generously to poor people, or when they pray, or when they fast. And at the same time, he says, listen, when your heart's right, then your motivation for doing good is so that others will see that there's a God in heaven who changes lives. Rather than look at how good of a follower of God I am. Right? There's a big difference between those two things.
And I love how Jesus uses salt and then light. And so now salt just in itself is a tremendous illustration because it was such a valuable commodity.
Absolutely.
So salt preserves, that you can rub it on meat. Salt heals, right? We gargle with salt water. Salt it flavors, right? Salt, what else does it do? Salt melts, right? We throw it on rock salt. And so salt does so many different things, and it's a valuable commodity. And he says, hey, if it loses all that, it gets thrown out. But as of right now, you are the salt of the earth. You are the people. You're my disciples.
Salt changes everything it touches.
Everything it touches.
Everything it touches, it changes.
And then he goes on to say, you're the light of the world. And then think about light. Think about how valuable light is compared to the darkness. And so he says, nobody lights a candle and puts it under a bushel. He's like that defeats the purpose of light. Right? Think about it. He says, no, you light a candle where you put it. You put it on a candlestick high in the house. Why? So everybody in the room could see. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. And he's referring to cities that were built back then, oftentimes were placed on hills as beacons, but more so for strategic purposes, so that people could not attack. They'd have to climb up a hill, then they would build walls around the city. They'd have to climb up hills and then scale walls. And so to fortify a city, you would place it up on a hill. And when it's lit at night with all the torches and everything else, you cannot hide that city. You can see it from miles around. And so at nighttime, if you're traveling, you don't have to wonder where the city is. It's there. And so everybody would have known that. And so he says, hey, it's just like a city on a hill. It cannot be hidden. Therefore, you are the light of the world. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Because you're just like that light on a candlestick. You're like that city on a hill. And he says, the value of light in the darkness, the value of salt on the earth, that's who we are in Christ. I love how he chooses both of those, and they're so rich.
It's good stuff, man.
All right. Well, sorry about that. We went past our time, but we will see you hopefully tomorrow.
That's bonus material.
Bonus material.
Congratulations, everybody.
That's free. All right. We're not trying to scam anything. All right. We'll see you next time on The Bible Guys.